Whatever scenarios I was describing, this information was in this message traffic. Scott said, I think this is our guy. He's Australian. And the FBI agent said, no, the person we're looking for is Canadian. Scott said, well, let me look something up because you can have dual citizenship. And here the guy had dual citizenship. He was Australian and Canadian. And that was the guy that they were able to apprehend.
Wow. How did you catch a spy?
I was approached by, after the program ended and I was back at DIA working as an analyst, people would approach me to, can you do this? Can you do that? Because they knew what I did. And sometimes I'd help them. Sometimes I wouldn't. But there was one man that really wanted help. And he asked he asked me if I would help him. And I think, he got the okay from some higher ups, but we had to do it on private time. We couldn't do it on government time. So I was helping this man out. It was a very sensitive project, and I was helping him. But whatever information I was getting, I don't know what I was getting because I didn't even know what the operation was. I gave him some information, and he called in a colleague of his by the name of Scott Carmichael. And he said, Scott, I have some information here that I know what you're working on, and this information may be helpful to, for some of your friends over at the State Department. By friends, he meant people that he worked with that share information with the State Department. And Scott said, well, how did you get this information? And the man said, I got it from a psychic. And Scott said, from a psychic? Are you crazy? I'm not going to go to the State Department and tell them that this information came from a psychic. He said, I'm not going to do that. So anyway, Scott said that he left, but he said, he had this problem. He had this case that he just couldn't get out of his mind. He just couldn't get out of his mind. So he went back to my friend, and he said, how does this work? So the guy said, well, here, just put what do you want to know? And they'll make up a little envelope, and they'll put something in the envelope, and they'll mix the envelope in with this guy's stuff, and then they'll pick it out, and at some point I would be working on Scott's project. So I guess one day I woke up, or when they gave me this project, and I don't know what I said. I identified a guy as, I think, Baker. I said the last name was Baker. Maybe the first name was Jeff. And I said he was Australian. And he was going to sell U.S. secrets. Well, that came out immediately. So Scott came back and he said, that was right. They said that what happened was the United States had a unit in Australia that worked with the Australians, and they were imagery analysts. And I guess one of the imagery analysts tried to sell, when you try to sell secrets, you never use your real name. So they knew his real name wasn't Jeff Baker, but they didn't know who he was. So now we know that they knew whatever I said was right. But now they came back to me and they said, who is Jeff Baker? So I described him as an Australian. I said what he looked like. I said his age range. I said he was on drugs. And I don't know what else I said, but so now they kind of had a profile of this person. And so now they were trying to look for him. Now, Scott worked for the FBI because if there's any spies, the FBI always arrests them because that's the arresting agency. But Scott did not tell the FBI he was working with a psychic because he said if it ever went to court, it may have been thrown out because they received information from a psychic. So we were kind of going along with the case, and Scott didn't think I was doing too good, but in retrospect, I don't think they were asking the questions right, and he even admitted that. But it seemed to be I did really good at the beginning, and then things were kind of weren't going real good. And then I don't know what I said. I said there was going to be a meeting that was going to take place. I felt that the guy would be apprehended, and there was supposed to be a meeting on a certain day. Well, now when this person went to the Singapore embassy to sell the secrets, the Singapore embassy contacted the United States and said, there's a guy here trying to sell your secrets. So something was set up like a, what do you call one of those plans where you try to lure the guy in?
Sting.
A sting. So at that point, they decided to do a sting operation. And at that time, I was kind of losing. I really wasn't doing really good at the case. But I don't know what happened. I was able to provide some information, and I can't even remember what it is. Scott wrote a Kindle book called Unconventional Method. But at that point, I felt like this is, I knew it wasn't going real well. But Scott came in, the FBI agent asked Scott to come in on a Sunday to work. They really wanted to work the case, and Scott started to read some message traffic. And he said he doesn't, whatever I said, whatever scenarios I was describing, this information was in this message traffic. And Scott said, I think this guy, his last name was Westpierre. He was Australian. Scott said, I think this is our guy, that this is the guy we want. He's Australian. And the FBI agent said, no, the person we're looking for is Canadian. And they went back and forth, and Scott kept saying, are you sure he's not Australian? And she said, no, he's Canadian. So Scott said, well, let me look something up, because you can have dual citizenship. And here the guy had dual citizenship. He was Australian and Canadian. And that was the guy that they were able to apprehend.
Wow. What does it feel like to you when you...
I was all happy, because I hate to be wrong. I mean, I'm very happy when I'm right, because you're not right all the time. You know, it's not, you don't always get it. I mean, I can remote view, and, it can be very vague. It can be very, very vague. It can be very vague. And a lot of times you're not right, or a lot of times you may feel that you're right, but people aren't there to check out the information. So if if I'm giving information and it's right, and somebody checks it out and it's right and it hits, I'm very happy.
No matter where you're watching Shawn Ryan Show from, if you get anything out of this, please like, comment, subscribe, and most importantly, share this everywhere you possibly can. And if you're feeling extra generous, please leave us a review on Apple and Spotify podcasts.